This week on Geekly, we are ranking all of the Halloween films. We are doing a full Halloween Ends review, and now your host, Mike and Deglio.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to K&M Geekly. Hey, it's a weekly show where Keith and I talk about what has been getting us through this week in the world of geek, which, to be truth be told, Keith, is basically all we do. And
literally.
And specifically this week because we're both home alone. Our roommates, our partners are out of town. We are here with just us and the cats. We're basically old cat ladies. And
yeah, no, for sure. It's 2 men, 4 cats, and a lot of tech. I'm excited this week. But before we do anything, I think I need to take you to the woodshed, sir.
I deserve it.
Speaking of tech. So I should say this. Mike has worked in the tech field for a tech startup for, 20-something years now?
10 years, yeah.
Well, you've worked at the tech for 10 years, but you've been doing this sort of stuff since the dawn of time.
Yes.
And what do I discover?
Built my own PC, started way back to my Commodore 64, then I had my Hewlett-Packard. I mean, a long time.
You have a very extensive tech history and knowledge. But this morning, as of about an hour ago, as we're setting up the show, because there's lots of new graphics we're flying in every week and we're transferring files back and forth, I have learned something about my good friend, Mike and Deglio here. And that is, and I'm excited to have you explain why this is the case. Mike does not know how to use Dropbox or Google Drive. Now, does that mean he does not have them? No. He has them. Mm-hmm. Does it mean he doesn't use them? Oh, no. He uses them every day. Every day you use them. But I think I'm trying to figure out what the equivalent would be of how you do it. You don't sync any folders in your Dropbox or Google Drive. So essentially, I come over to your house. You're really excited. You just bought this amazing stereo. And I'm like, wow, how much did it cost? Oh, $20,000. How did you?
That's one hell of a stereo.
Possibly? That's an incredible stereo. And is it in your basement? No. It's out in the garage. Come look at it. And it's a car. But he's just using it as a stereo because he doesn't know what the actual purpose of the thing is. Syncing folders is why you have Dropbox and Google Drive. Otherwise, you're just emailing.
Well, not initially. So let me explain what my initial use case was. Okay, and then I just haven't kept up with the times. So initially, years ago, way too many years ago, when I first switched over to MacBooks. So we're talking like over a decade ago. You buy Mac puts storage at a premium. So I think I got like 128 gigabytes on my MacBook Air, like the first MacBook I bought.
Right.
And I was like, sure. I started having fear that I was going to run out, storage fear that I was going to run out of gigabytes. Mm-hmm. And so, the OS takes up space, your videos, your this and that. And I was like, well, why don't I? You can like plug in a bunch of external drives, but I was trying to be minimalist. So I got cloud space and I did the sync, but the sync, it takes up all your hard drive space. So I disabled Cloud Sync, and I would just upload everything to the cloud, and when I needed it, I put it back in. Now, years later, I'm realizing that now we have so many terabytes. I built my own PC here. I've got terabytes and terabytes of drive space, and the fact that I have to download stuff every week from you, and then if you update it, I have to download it again. It's starting to be ridiculous.
Just so the people understand, when I send you a file, which I do frequently, you have to download it as a zip folder, unzip it, and then work with it from there.
Yes.
And if I change the file, you
it hasn't been a problem because I'm rocking a gigabit up and down internet, so it's really fast. It's as fast
as you have to unzip a file every time I send you a JPEG.
One thing I work on in therapy, and I tell about my wife, when I'm wrong, I will say I'm wrong. And in this instance, I'm realizing that I have been I need to now. And back then too, to be fair. Well, this is Geekly, so we can have this conversation.
This is the whole point of the show.
To be fair, back then it was the technology was very bad about selective sync. I don't want to sync everything up there. I just want a couple of
Right.
drives that sync. But I think you can do that pretty easily now.
Oh yeah, every day. Well, look,
Not that you're the
I
poster
know-
child, Keith. If Keith uploads more than a 100 megabyte file, I wait days for it.
that is not true. Talk to Xfinity. That ain't me.
You're right.
Anyway,
That is Xfinity.
But I love because you're trying to keep your hard drives empty.
Mhm.
So luckily, Mike, I know the depression was really tough.
Yeah.
But it's done now. You can use the hard drive space that you have, and we
Keith,
will sync with Glee.
This week in tech also, well, maybe not tech, but in geek stuff, you know what I did for the first time in maybe 20 years? This
Ooh,
weekend?
what's that?
I went to a
Well, your wife's out of town. It's been
No, she
20
was with me.
years.
How dare you? I went to a water park.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah, and I for sure, I underestimated. I thought for sure I'm way too old for water slides. But my nieces were with me, so I went on some water slides, and it's still awesome. It's still really cool.
Well, you know what's weird? I used to go every year up to the water slides in Montreal, and it was so much fun, and I loved it. But now, like I haven't gone in probably 25 years at least, but now, especially the enclosed ones, I see them on like Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and it give me anxiety.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I get that.
I'm more frightened of them now than I was when I was 10.
Well, the funny part is, so I went to Kalahari Resorts in the Poconos. I was there for work. I was helping host a tech conference or an education conference with my brother. I was running the tech, and but we got free passes to the water park. And
But that's got to be a lot of zip files.
yeah, a lot of zip files, and I just bring so many cords. Everything was wireless, but I bring every cord I have just in case. And you know what? No matter where I go, you're always using your cords. You're always jury rigging something because even these multi-million-dollar facilities are always missing an 1/8-inch patch cable or something.
You will never hear me give you crap about having too many cords and cables and adapters because I have a working Radio Shack in the basement.
Yep, we were going for less than 24 hours, and Jen's like, "Why do you have 3 suitcases?" I was like, "It's cords, Jen. It's cords.
It's cords. It's got the juice.
Yep. Do you need an 80-foot HDMI cord? You might.
You never know.
Yep. Yeah, 125-foot Ethernet cord? I got it.
Guys, the depression was hard on us both.
Yeah, it's true. So, the funny part about all this is I'm kind of looking back at it. You know, Keith will tell you, I got food poisoning. It was actually a pretty shitty weekend. But, health-wise, I had a lot of fun. But here's the thing. So, I have this weird OCD thing with foot fungus. I didn't expect to go to the water park. And since I didn't bring water shoes, and so I had to like do it barefoot. So the whole time, even though there's chlorine everywhere, there's something about bare feet walking around. It's weird and gross to me. That's just how I am.
Fair enough.
So the whole time I'm like curling my toes and I'm walking up the steps funny, and I'm like just being a really hypochondriac.
You're curling your toes. Is that gonna help? How does curling your toes help?
I didn't know that it helps. It's just that's my reaction.
No germs
You
now.
know, everybody's like, "Is she a clubfoot? Why is he walking?" So anyway, here's the real joke of it all. We're driving home.
Oh my God.
We're driving home. And that was like where my thought was. And thank God, Keith, that's what I was obsessing about. Because what I didn't realize is Jen's like, do you find it weird that we were just in like it's an indoor water park. So we're in this giant facility. It's like 84 degrees and humid in there because they keep it heated.
Is this the one near the Great Escape?
No, this is in upstate Pennsylvania, so the Poconos.
Oh, Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I hear upstate and it's New York.
There's a bunch of Kalaharis, yeah. But regardless, she's like, is it weird that we're just like in this like just disease bubble? She's like, all these people coughing and breathing. There's no hand sand. There's also chlorine ain't going to protect airborne
Nobody's
particles.
wearing a mask,
No.
right? Of course.
And so I was like, oh yeah, that actually was very, very. We're gonna get sick, like flat out. Forget your foot fungus. If your foot itches, that don't matter if you're coughing constantly. So anyway, and I did get sick. So there you go. There you have it.
This little piggy got some fungus. Okay, well.
So yeah, that and one other thing I've been geeking this week that's important before we get into the main stuff is, and this is this true? I'm very tactile. I love my fidget spinners. As Keith knows, you guys, if you watch the channel, you know Keith is always clicking his pen. We both are obsessed with it. Do you know what? To this, as an adult, just it started when I was a kid, and it still happens as an adult. And I recommend it to everybody out there. When you're walking around, step on those leaves, y'all. If you're on the East Coast of the United States, it is still so satisfying to just like follow the curb and just crunch those leaves. Do you go outside and do you walk at all, Keith? Do you leave the house?
It doesn't look like I walk at all. It looks like I have no reason to curl my toes at all.
Do you crunch? Are you a leaf cruncher, or like when nobody's around, do you like ruin your neighbor's piles for the leaves, or do you avoid and be respectful?
I grew up basically on the side of a mountain in Vermont. Leaves are like where my whole childhood. So yeah, I mean, forget, walking on them. You make the big pile and you dive into them.
Well, I don't have any to pile, but I just find them on my strolls. I just find it very satisfying. It's still satisfying to crunch those leaves. So if when you're taking your strolls out there, if you've been respectful of your neighbor's leaf piles, don't be. Just jump on in.
Mike, we have learned far too much about your feet this episode already.
I love a crunch. I don't love a fungus, but I love a crunch.
Okay. Well, I mean, I don't have much to say about that.
But Keith, falling leaves means that it's the fall, which means it's Halloween time, which means it's spooky season. Have you been watching your horror movies?
Oh, have I? Have I indeed? No, I mean, I'm a huge horror buff. I love many different types of horror films, and one of my all-time favorite genres are the old school 80s series. Right? Obviously, we're setting up talking about the Halloween movies, but I love that kind of genre because these long-running series usually start with a great movie, right? You don't usually end up having a long-running series if something doesn't start out good. But then, with various budgets and rights issues and writers and ideas, they go in wild directions. Sometimes they're terrific. Sometimes they're terrible. Sometimes they're utterly incomprehensibly bad. And I love all of it. So one of my traditions is every Halloween season, I'll watch all of one of these series. So it sort of alternates between like Halloween and the Friday the 13th, and maybe it'll be the whatever. We did all the Conjuring ones recently, where they have a ton of movies. But I like primarily the older ones, the 70s, 80s, and 90s, because of the wild variety in quality. Because I love the terrible ones too. I love like when Jason's in space, like I love it when it gets absolutely bonkers. And so it is one of my great joys to go back and rewatch all of these and to dissect them all. So I'm very excited today to give you my definitive ranking of every single Michael Myers Halloween movies. Are you excited about that, Mike?
I'm excited about it, and here's why. So it should be noted that I'm not one of those people who derives fun from fear very much. So when you go to your haunted houses or your haunted hayrides, or people jump out at you, or you see a scary movie, I generally am closing my eyes, and I don't. The endorphin release of being scared does not elicit fun or joy for me. I know it does for many people. Not knocking on it at all. So the horror genre for me, I often find like torture porn, so your Saws and your to be
it's different.
I don't really enjoy it. I find much of modern horror to be either that or trying too hard, trying to say too much and not. I enjoy what's fun for me is I like camp, and so the earlier 70s and 80s stuff now viewed from a contemporary lens is very campy to me, and so I derive a lot of joy from it, just like you. The original Nightmare on Elm Street series, that's my jam. Love it. Jason Voorhees, yeah, a lot of that is fun. Halloween is an interesting one because the original John Carpenter masterpiece I adore. I found many of I find many of them to be trying too hard. I've felt that way about this new trilogy a little bit too. It's a little on the. I get their big picture stuff. Just give me the body count. I like to see the inventive kills. I like to see that kind of stuff. So that's why I was drawn to this new trilogy. of Halloween, and that's why we're going to talk about it. But I don't have the affinity you do, and so I don't have a ranking, and so I'm here for the ride
Yeah.
with you, and I'll
Well,
help you slot this one in, though, maybe.
no, for sure, for sure. And I will say that, um, for me, you talk about being scared by horror films. I think because I've seen hundreds of them now, I'm no longer scared by them. But what I am is chasing the memory
Mm-hmm.
of being scared.
Yeah, that
When I
feeling.
was a kid seeing The Shining for the first time or that sort of thing, that feeling was so exhilarating that I'm sort of like just tapping into the memory of that.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that's a great segue because one of my favorite scared memories as we begin the Halloween movie
All right,
rankings.
let me get into our thing.
Let's transition.
Okay,
Of
so far
course.
so good.
So that makes it pretty obvious, pretty easy. I'm going to work from best to worst in the Halloween series here. And I don't think the sort of anticlimactic, but of course, if you're going to be ranking the Halloween movies, you have to start with Halloween 1, the original, the classic John Carpenter, low
Mm-hmm.
budget slasher film that the first time I saw it scared the bejesus out of me as a kid. And there's just it's such a it's such a masterpiece. Every moment in it is iconic, totally. And of course, Mike, you know where the mask comes from, yeah?
Yeah,
Of
it
course,
was.
it is a. Go ahead.
It's a William Shatner mask.
It is a spray painted Shatner mask. And they made this movie for I think $60,000. And you know there a lot of the great classic movies from this era. This was 1978. Rely on ingenuity and creativity because of a lack of budget or technical abilities. I mean, this is only 3 years after Jaws, right,
Mm-hmm.
which became a masterpiece because of their technical limitations. Because they couldn't make the shark work, they had to build suspense, had to build, do things by inference, building the idea of the monster as opposed to showing the monster. And I think Halloween 1 very much plays in
Yeah,
that pond.
don't quote me, but I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Michael Myers' screen time in Halloween 1 is about 9 minutes, 9.5 minutes.
If that.
Yeah.
If that. But he has a ton of brilliant, like quick little shots. He'll, the first few times that we see him, he hasn't even killed anybody yet. And we just see him. He's there in the bushes. She looks back, he's gone. He's there behind the sheet. He's there, and some more subliminal stuff. Because if you go back and watch the movie, a lot of times we see Michael Myers more than you think we do.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There's a scene where they're talking to what's her name's father, who's the cop, and they just pull their car up and they're having this conversation. And in the background, you see Michael Myers drive his car and go back. And I don't know if many people even notice it, but that subconscious menacing around the edges, where every shot matters, everything we see matters. And of course, we get our first iconic performance from Jamie Lee Curtis. This is the movie that made her a star. I think she made $9,000 doing this first one. Last trilogy, I think she made over $5 million for each movie. So it ended up being a good investment. But there's not much more to say about Halloween 1. It's great. Watch it.
I feel like the points I would add is that it's about simplicity. I mean, a lot of handheld camera work. That POV shot really gives you the feeling of stalking, which is something that a lot of horror films of that time were about the slaughter fest, right? They were just straight up slasher films, and this gave you more of the. I mean, it gets there, but it's a stalking. It is hunter and prey, and also the simplicity extends to the score. I mean, this is probably a
phenomenal score,
a all-time classic, and it's all simplicity. I mean, that piano riff is indelled into our culture, and it's a couple notes.
Yeah.
And finally, I would just say that it introduced, and it's been riffed on and troped on and spoofed since, the idea of the final girl. Jamie Lee Curtis was the original final girl, and I think that it brings us all the way to what we'll talk about later today, which is her final performance as the final girl and how that all pans out. So Halloween 1, Keith, you're right, is a masterpiece that will never be rivaled.
And we should point out that score was done by John Carpenter, who also wrote and directed it. So, John Carpenter, incredibly talented director, but also a very credible composer. And has some really, that score is phenomenal. Anyway, it's great. So let's talk about what is number 2 on my ranking. So for me, interestingly, because I know you might not feel this way, my number 2 Halloween movie is the 2018 Halloween. So, because for wait, before I start talking about Halloween 2018, I want to do something fun with this ranking, and that is I'm going to give off the way in which Michael Myers was dispatched at the end of each movie, so we can count up what has happened to this man. So at the end of the original Halloween, Michael Myers is stabbed in the eye with a coat hanger, shot 3 times, and thrown off the second story of a house. But he does disappear, so he's not technically killed at the end of this one. So anyway, 2018 Halloween. Here's a things that I like about this film. It's a real movie, right? It's not like it's shot, written, directed as a real movie. The performances are great, the shots are great, the kills are great and interesting. There's iconic, great visual moments. I loved, when he drops the teeth into the toilet stall. Jamie Lee Curtis is back. This is the most recent timeline. So in this timeline, only Halloween 1 has happened. None of the other films have happened. So this is, I think, the 7th different timeline, but this is the current timeline that we live in. I think, coming back on Laurie Strode as an older woman dealing with PTSD, having prepared this whole time, that makes sense. The consequences that it had on her children and grandchildren logically makes sense. I think the finale was super exciting. I love the fire and the inferno and all of that kind of stuff. And this is the thing that I really liked about this this movie was it is also funny. And I think, I don't know who wrote what, but it feels like Danny McBride's hand in all of the side characters, like, the father's monologue about getting peanut butter on his dick, like hilarious. And you got the kid and the babysitter. It's just really fun, funny, lighter writing happening through it, so that when we're not spending our time with Laurie, it's still something enjoyable. And I'm looking forward to seeing all of these characters. So it had a really good mixture of light and dark. It had the brutality that you want. Michael Myers looks great. They got the mask right, and we'll talk more about when they didn't get the masks right. But for me, weirdly, I think 2018 Halloween is my number 2 film.
Yeah, I really dug this one. I thought it was a strong. I liked the idea of shooting what I thought would be the entire trilogy in one night. That was kind of the idea. I thought a lot of the decisions that characters made were logical, which is often not the case in this type of genre. So I agree. I thought it was a strong outing. And, it was fun. That's the other thing, too, is these movies are supposed to be fun. We'll get to that. Remember that. And I thought that it was. So I agree. I think it's a good. That's a good rank.
All right. So before we move on to number 3 in our Halloween rankings, we of course have to say how Michael Myers was dispatched in 2018 Halloween. And here's what happens to our hero. He has 2 fingers cut off. He's shot in the face. He is stabbed and then trapped in a basement inferno. A pretty impressive basement inferno. So that's what happens to him there. Now it is time to move on to number 3 in my rankings of the Halloween films. And that, of course, number 3 for me, probably controversial, is Halloween 2. And this is the one where that picks up right after the 1978 Halloween and takes place in a apparently abandoned hospital where there's no patients and only 3 employees. However, Michael Myers tracks her down, and chases her around through the hospital. Uh, yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people don't think of this movie as fondly as I do, but I find it very satisfying. I think the hospital of it all is an interesting new setting. I like the fact that it takes place immediately after. It's got the great silliness. It's got that ridiculous hot tub scene. Um, and I think the ending is exciting. What do you remember much about Halloween 2?
I did revisit this because it was, if I'm not mistaken, it was still canon in this trilogy, the new trilogy, right?
No,
No,
I don't
because
think
it picks
so.
up right after. You're right. So, I remember the hospital one, yeah, and I remember it being a little campier. Am I right about that?
Mildly so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I dig it. It's that OG. It's still got that OG vibe, so it's hard not to appreciate it at the very
It
least.
it still has that new series smell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, but I think it's fun. It is weird that the hospital is utterly abandoned
Mm-hmm.
and has no lights, but that's another one of those budgetary things that we have to deal with. And of course, our finale, Michael Myers. This is the second movie out of 12. He is shot directly into each eye and then blown up in a giant fireball, apparently killing both him and Dr. Loomis. Now, Mike, what do you think the chances are that neither one of them died in this movie?
Probably pretty high, Keith. While we're doing this, you know what I thought? Since you're doing the ranking, I think I can help out by each movie. I can give you the kill count.
Oh, okay,
Look
great.
that up. So far, where we are now, Halloween 2,
Halloween 2,
1981 had 10 kills.
10 kills. Okay. So,
All right.
and that's more than Halloween 1, yeah?
Halloween had 6 kills. 1978. Yep.
Okay. Oh, well, I think the kill count, excellent. And do you have a kill count on Halloween 2018?
Yes, Halloween 2018 ups the stakes, Keith. 17 kills.
17. All right. Well, I imagine that as we move forward, the kill count's going to get a little bit higher, which is a great setup for number 4 in my ranking, and that is Halloween Kills. This is the second in the most recent trilogy, which, again, I don't think people liked as much as I do, but I enjoyed it for a couple of different reasons. I like the continuation of the story directly off of the 2018 Halloween. I thought the fan service of bringing back all the original characters was really fun. I thought him escaping the inferno and killing the firefighters, well, it made no sense that he was able to escape out of the way they trapped him. Whatever, who cares? It was very exciting and fun. I liked the sort of exploration of the town going kill crazy and our sort of mob mentalities and the danger of that, and seeing the consequences of that with the other patient who escaped, who was perfectly innocent, but the town essentially got together and killed him. And we saw both our heroes joining the mob, like, we're gonna go kill everybody, and then as it turns out, they end up being wrong and they pay the price by the end of the movie. So I kind of liked that. It was weird not to have Laurie Strode in much of it. She was sort of confined. It's like, we have an hour and a half with Jamie Lee Curtis, so we're gonna make it work, but it was logical. Of course, she'd just been horribly stabbed. She's gonna be in surgery. So I thought it was effectively shot. It continued the tradition of having fun side characters who were really funny, and I thought it was an interesting, well executed film in this series. Mike, how did you feel about it?
I apologize for the leaf blower. There's not much I can do about it. I enjoyed it. This was one that I felt. I mean, I get the point that we're also examining the how Michael Myers' evil is infecting the town, and how we can all be evil when we make assumptions. I get it. It just felt a little like it was trying a little hard. It felt like it was trying to really hammer home that point. What I did appreciate, like I said earlier, is I dig. Well, they're right outside.
Just like blowing directly into your window.
Ah! I wish we had a great special effect kill here. I mean, that is obnoxious. I like that it's all one night still. I like that it's a direct continuation. And also, Keith, hard not to like 34 kills, the number one kill count.
34! Oh my God. Well, I mean, and the ending of it was very... it was shocking that he got up and killed everybody, including most of our heroes, leaving us with only a few left.
And spoiler alert, I guess I'll put a spoiler thing on this whole thing.
Yeah.
It kills the daughter, which she's like a huge character. That I didn't see coming. And it happened at the last second, the last frame of the movie, which I felt a little cheap because I dug the ending pretty much until that point, but that kind of ruined it for me. But regardless, I
thought that was great. I thought it was very satisfying.
What I think no one would question, and this has been a divisive trilogy, is that they take big swings. A lot of big ideas, and they're taking their big swings with the lore and the characters.
Yeah. I thought this was I actually really liked it. So how does it end? What happens to Michael Myers in this movie? Well, he's rounded up by a posse. He's beaten with blunt objects. He is shot 5 times, stabbed in the spine, then gets up and kills everybody.
Yeah, evil don't die easy.
Evil don't die easy. And neither does this series, because we are up to number 5. Number 5 on my list is Halloween H2O. It is the return of Laurie Strode, who we had last seen in Halloween 2. It takes place 20 years later, which seemed like forever after the movie. Unbelievable amount of time has passed, and now it's 40. And we're like, oh, okay. But we have, I think, a pretty interesting and satisfying environment to hang out. So Laurie Strode is running a private school. Everybody's gone, so we're sort of isolated with Michael Myers and Laurie Strode's teenage son. Now, of course, you're like, wait a minute, doesn't have a son. Well, this is a different timeline.
Right, it's a total reboot.
It's a total different timeline. So this one, Halloween 1 and 2 exist, and none of the other Halloweens exist.
Right.
So this is its own separate timeline. 1, 2, and 7 are a separate timeline from 1 to 10, 11, and 12, or 11, 12, 13. Yeah, I think...
and basically all of them reject Halloween 3. Halloween 3 like doesn't exist.
Well, Halloween 3 is not a Michael Myers movie.
Right.
They were trying to do an anthology series, right? Where they were going to have just other scary movies in the Halloween anthology after the first 2 Michael Myers, and they realized, oh no, that's bad. So Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is not on this list because it's not a Michael Myers movie at all. Also, it's trash. It's wild. It's worth a view if you haven't seen it, because it is like, what is happening? Yeah, that's a problematic movie, but not part of this series. But what I liked about Halloween H2O, I love Adam Arkin as an actor. We have Janet Leigh. Nancy Stevens comes back as Nurse Marion for the first time. And I think we get a really fun performance from LL Cool J in it, which was really fun. Now, Mike, do you know who? I think I texted you, but I'm also pretty confident you will not remember this. We have a cameo as the voice of LL Cool J's girlfriend on the phone. Now, do you have any idea who that is?
We did talk about this. I can't even remember when we talked about this. It had to be during Out of Practice, so it had to be a member of the practice.
That's right. It's Lisa Gay Hamilton.
Right.
Does the voice of LL Cool J's girlfriend on the phone, which was really fun for those of us fans of Lisa Gay Hamilton and The Practice and such. But great cast. I mean, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's in it. And yeah, so it's a fun movie. I thought the ending was satisfying. I loved the scene of battling. He was on top of the tables and she's underneath the tables and he's flipping them. Like visually, that looked really cool. And of course, it ends pretty definitively, as one would imagine, as it always seems to, uh, where Michael Myers is shot a bunch of times. Then he is crashed into a tree with a van,
Mm.
pinned into a tree, then decapitated by Laurie Strode. So pretty definitive. That's going to be the end. Mike, do you think this is the end this time?
Some would say maybe. I would say probably not.
Probably not. Yeah. So that is Halloween H2O. So what was the kill count on that? Probably pretty low.
7.
Mm.
7
Okay.
kills.
7 kills. Well, there you go. All right. Here we go. Number 6. We are getting into the mushy middle of the Halloween series. And that, of course, is, once again, just Halloween. This is not that one. Go back one for your poster.
Oh, my bad.
This is Rob Zombie's Halloween. Now, this is not a continuation of the series. This is a hardcore reboot where we go back and retell the story of teenage Laurie Strode running into Michael Myers. Now, of course, it's a Rob Zombie film. Now, if you're a horror fan, you know Rob Zombie's work pretty well. That he is, I think, a very talented director who
Very distinct visual style.
very distinct visual style, very distinct characterizations. He uses his a usual cast that he works with a lot. Of course, his wife plays Michael Myers' mother, and Zombie is wildly talented. He really kind of only works at an 11 out of 10, and it's sometimes he battles with taste. It can be a little much sometimes.
Mhm.
So he's a talented guy who sometimes doesn't know when to like take that 10% off. So and look, I like House of a Thousand Corpses, but oh my god, that is
It's a lot.
very intense movie. And so this is a pretty intense version of Halloween. I think it's very well shot and written and acted. He brings an incredible cast of horror stars and people you've seen in all sorts of grindhouse stuff, exploitation stuff. It is also, Zombie is not always super great in his treatment of women in shows, and is not above exploiting, and so it's very it's super violent. There's a lot of gratuitous nudity, which I'm a huge fan of, right? But it's not always super tasteful, and of course it brings back Danielle Harris, who we're
Mhm.
going to talk about a lot as an adult, who was a big part of the Halloween legacy. So I really liked what I liked about this movie was the I think an interesting exploration of young Michael Myers. We spend a lot of time with the kid Michael Myers. And I think that is something that we have. Obviously, we see him in the original film for a split second. We get the flashback and we see him kill his sister.
Well, the
But
first 5 kills of the entire movie are when he's a kid.
yeah. And Dag Farch, I believe Farch is the name of the kid, who I think does a phenomenal job. He's terrifying. Malcolm McDowell, Brad Dourif, Tyler Mane plays Michael Myers. It's the first time Michael Myers is a giant. Because unlike Jason, Michael Myers is always, or most of the time, a regular sized dude.
Mm-hmm.
He's not giant, but he is in the Rob Zombie world. And Scout Taylor Compton plays Laurie Strode. So, I mean, there's a lot to like about this. The casting, the directing, it's well written, it's well constructed. It is, it does not have the elegance of the original series, but this is a competent, real movie.
Mhm.
Again,
Yep.
And I think this is looking at my list here. This is the last like real film on the Halloween series list, and it's going to devolve pretty fast from here. But before we move on, let's talk about what happens to our good friend Michael Myers. He falls off the second story of a house, recreating the first movie, then gets shot point blank in the face. But he'll be fine. Don't worry about it. What was the kill count on this one?
Kill count, some things about this movie to note. Rob Zombie's most commercially successful film to date. And it was still the most profitable Labor Day release in cinema history.
Interesting.
And I remember going to see this in the movies. And it had 20 kills.
20 kills. Okay. Well, and that's where it's sometimes not always about the number, but it is about the intensity of them. So there we go. Okay, so that is we are now in the back half. And starting up with we just mentioned Danielle Harris, but she is back and she's beginning in Halloween 4, the return of Michael Myers. So this is one where we find out, it turns out Laurie Strode had a daughter. Laurie Strode's dead now, and had a daughter. So this is still, when this came out, still in the original timeline. So we didn't veer off onto a second timeline. If you take out Season of the Witch, we didn't veer off into a second timeline until Halloween H2O. So we've got a little girl. She might have some telepathic powers. I don't know. It's tough to say. But
Michael Myers is back. That's what's important.
Michael Myers is back, and he's gonna take revenge. Of course, we have Donald Pleasance back as Loomis. So he's sort of the anchor from the original series here, trying to protect this little girl. The town, it forms a posse and they shoot him, and there's stuff going on, but it's all not that great. And you'll note, if you look at the trailer here, this is where the first time you see the mask goes horribly wrong. Right? So according to the lore, the original masks from the first two movies were lost or had degraded over time. So they had to rebuild a new mask. And for reasons beyond my understanding, we were able to get a man to the moon in the 60s. Literally, we got people on the moon.
Allegedly.
Stanley Kubrick was able to fake that, but they can't get the mask to look anywhere near what the original mask looks like. I can't believe how bad the mask is.
It's not good.
And I don't understand how that happened. But this is one of those things where the tone of the series shifted a bit here.
Mm-hmm. The kills get a little more clever because of that, I think, or at least more outside the box.
Vaguely, yeah. I mean, it's a little bit more cartoony. The town.
Where don't they push someone off a truck or something in this one?
There's a lot of truck battles in this one. Yeah, I've got the posse rounding folks up, and it starts to become a little silly in this movie. And whereas the first two, the tones were just absolute straightforward. Now it's not quite as silly as the next one, but it is still we're sort of playing comedic beats, and the stakes don't feel real anymore because we're in sort of a cartoon world. We have the babysitter who's in peril, the Laurie Strode stand-in, but she's not that interesting. She's got a terrible stepdad who we see die horribly, which is fun. So, this one feels very much of its time. This is a late 80s slasher film where as series went along, you sort of allowed for and expected the quality of the movies to drop off a cliff. And that's what happened here. We saw it happen with all of our favorite series. With Jaws. I mean, Jaws just dropped off a cliff. This happened, the Jason movies, and they start becoming half a parody of themselves, but not. It just becomes a little bit silly. So this is the part of the series where it gets a little bit silly. And speaking of silly, well, Mike, give us a kill count, and then I'm going to say what happens to our buddy Michael Myers.
Biggest kill count until Rob Zombie, 19 kills.
19 kills. Now, here's what I do for you, people watching K&M Geekly. I actually sat down and made check marks and counted. At the end of this movie, Michael Myers is rounded up by a posse and shot, by my count, 38 times
Now,
before he
still nowhere in
falls.
the lore is he's still a mortal man.
Oh yes, oh yes. There's not really a supernatural element yet. He falls into a mine shaft,
Mm-hmm.
which then collapses on him. So doesn't go well for him at the end. So you think, Mike, that's got to be it, right?
Not if it made any money.
No, and it made just enough to have our next movie, Halloween 5, which picks up the story after Halloween 4, The Revenge of Michael Myers. This is one where, again, we have wild, crazy tonal shifts. Danielle Harris is back. Now she's haunted and has the ability to see visions. Oh, right, I forgot. At the end of Halloween 4, Danielle Harris becomes Michael Myers.
Right.
She kills the babysitter's mom or whatever it was. So when Halloween 5 comes up, they're like, "Oops, nope, never mind." Very similar to what we did in the Jason series. Maybe we'll do that next year. So never mind. She didn't kill everybody. It's all good. But she's a little crazy now, and we're gonna track her down. And you can see in the video there we have the introduction of what's going to pay off in the next movie of the Man in Black, who's mysterious.
That's the cult thing, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
We begin
that was stupid.
Oh, golly, was it stupid.
And doesn't Loomis die at the end of this one, or they try to kill him?
Well, this is, I believe, he has
like a heart attack or whatever. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so he definitely died after 2, which is why, because he blew up. He literally blew up a hospital, and he was on the bomb. But now he's got a scar that mysteriously, appears and disappears throughout the rest of the series. So this movie, there's one moment that just I can't stop laughing every time I see it. There's just a couple of cops who interact with our heroes in this movie, and they play this ridiculous sound cue when we see them. Find it on YouTube. It was like, and it is. I can't see it without
the mask
without
is pretty
laughing
bad
my
there
ass
too.
off. Yeah, well, again, they couldn't get the mask. They couldn't get the mask right. It's really, really crazy. Mike, what was our kill count on this?
Keith, remember this was released just 1 year after, so they were really going back to that financial woodshed. Officially 20 kills, 21 if we count Dr. Loomis's heart attack. So hard to say.
Well, that's right. I mean, we'll see how many of them actually survived.
Yeah.
So at the end of this, guess what? I mentioned the Man in Black, right? Who we've only sort of seen his boots and just mysteriously
he breaks him out of jail, right?
shots. That's right. Michael Myers does not die. He is rescued and broken out of prison by the Man in Black. Whatever that means, we don't know, but it probably means there's gonna be another one of these. Okay, so we have had Michael Myers broken out of prison, but we are now ourselves in the prison of the bad ones. And coming up, number 9, interestingly, because I kind of liked his other one, this is Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, which, this one
Don't we see zombie Michael Myers?
No, he's not a zombie.
He's all effed up. We see his face, though, is what I'm saying.
Yes, well, he's always at various shades of effed up.
Yeah.
But we do see his face a lot more in this movie. Now, there are 2 versions of this movie out there. There's the theatrical version and the director's cut, which have very different endings and very different setups. But basically, this one is everything that the first zombie Halloween film was without any light. It's so bleak and so dark, and everybody, Rob Zombie's characters, they're sort of irredeemably bad, but usually they're charming and engaging in some fashion and sort of likable. But this one, boy, it's just nobody is likable. Laurie Strode, now, of course, it's probably a pretty realistic depiction of the PTSD that she would have gone through. But it is just like, oh, why am I watching this poor girl suffer? It has all of the sort of exploitation that the first one did without sort of the redeeming charm or ideas. Yeah, I mean, and of course, we spend so much time with Michael Myers hallucinating his dead mom ghost, which is just like, what? Now I get it.
That
you
was
know, it's
Zombie's
Zombie's
wife, right?
wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
There she
Sherry
is.
Moon Zombie, like, who I like as an actress and everything, but this was a very like,
This one's
what
gory
is
as hell, right?
happening? Oh, super gory,
Yeah.
super gory. Like, what is happening? I did like the continuation of Loomis having sold out and becoming one of the like a TV personality, which I was like, okay, yeah, I think that actually makes sense. I liked that sort of twist. We do at the beginning of it has a lot of, it's a nod to Halloween 2. So we begin it in the hospital. We think we're going to redo the hospital thing, but it's sort of a fake out, and that's not what we do. So yeah, I mean, it's just becomes a little bit more nonsensical. The characters don't make as much sense. The story is not engaging. It's so relentlessly bleak that I don't have anybody to root for, I think is what's happening there.
Sounds like
And
you're
so
giving this one severed thumb down.
I'm definitely giving it a thumb down. I did not like this one. And to explain what happened at the end, there's two different versions. Because they have very different endings in the original cut. So in the original ending, our good friend Michael Myers is hit in the throat by 2 shots from a sniper rifle, then impaled on farm equipment, stabbed 10 times in the chest, and is dead, as we understand it. And then in the director's cut, he is instead of that, or I guess in addition to all of that, he is then shot by another posse 28 times by my count. And before Laurie Strode is then shot, it's very strange, very bleak, and not any fun. I think that's really what it is. Like, the first zombie film was interesting because it humanized Michael Myers as a kid. The second one is just not any fun. It's just bleak. Which brings us
19 kills.
to 19 kills. Thank you. Thank you. Which brings us to our second to last film before we put Halloween Ends in its place. And that is, of course, Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. And boy, do we go off the rails on this one, where Michael Myers is controlled by a cult of like witchcraft and hot nonsense. We get a let's call it remarkable performance as Paul Rudd.
Paul Rudd, right?
Not as Paul Rudd. Paul Rudd is in it.
It's a kid's name. Oh, what's that kid's name? Tommy something.
Tommy. Yeah, Tommy. Who was the little boy
I
in
can't
the
believe
first
I remember
movie.
that, actually.
Yeah, well done. And of course, Tommy comes back in Halloween Kills. Different version of it, different timeline, obviously.
Michael C. Hall, right?
Michael C. Hall.
Yeah.
So this was very young, pre sort of everything Paul Rudd, playing, creepy, scary Tommy Doyle. We have Donald Pleasance in his final performance as Dr. Loomis. Oh boy, this one is bad. It makes no sense. The introduction of like the witchcraft. Michael Myers is controlled by witches. Like, what the hell is this? Yeah, and Paul Rudd, I love Paul Rudd. I love him in everything he's ever done. I think he's super charming. He's bad in this. It's not his fault. Like what he was given to work with was hot nonsense. But oh boy, this is not good. So yeah, if any of them, if there's any of them that I wish didn't exist
Here it is.
because of the damage it does to the other movies
Look at
in the
that. Look
series.
at that. Look at that bad newspaper headline.
Everything. I'm surprised there's not a typo in it. This just so badly done, and this was another one of those films that had a horrible mess in production. Right, they realized it was bad and were rewriting it on the fly. They recut it. I don't know if they fired and replaced the director in the editing process or producers just fired him from the editing process and edited a completely different version of it. So there are two versions of this movie. That one of them is leaning into all the occult witchcraft of it all, and then another one which like tries to downshift on that, but it's kind of impossible because it's so much about what the movie's about. Oof, it's not good. So here are the two options of what happened to our good friend Michael Myers at the end of Halloween 6. In one of them, he's injected with goo of some sort,
All right.
then hit with a lead pipe by Ant-Man 1,000,000 times.
Okay.
Or he is trapped in a weird cult symbol and escapes. It's I've seen this movie 3 times and I still don't have any idea what's happening.
Well, I can tell you definitively there are 17 kills, Keith.
17. Okay, well, there you go. This is sadly the last film done by Donald Pleasance, who died frequently. He died quickly after this. But it's an interesting movie. What's interesting about this movie is to compare and contrast the two edited versions of it, because they did so many different reshoots. They have alternate complete versions of scenes, some of which Donald Pleasance was alive to film. And then when they had to do reshoots, he was not alive anymore, so they had to edit it really weirdly.
Off screen, right?
No, wait, no. I mean, the actor died.
Right, but they kill the character off screen, I think, because he had died during reshoots or prior to reshoots.
Well, in one version they kill him on screen, and the other version he gets away.
Oh, okay. There you go.
So I don't know. And it's interesting for the behind the scenes drama of how this movie was created. It is just flat trash. But it is not the flattest, trashiest movie in the series, because we have to talk about the worst Halloween film by my ranking. Of course, the legendary Halloween 8, Halloween Resurrection.
Tyra Banks!
Tyra Banks and Busta Rhymes. And
I don't know that I've seen this one.
Wow, it is. All right, so just to try to explain what's happening in this movie. First off, Jamie Lee Curtis.
The early 2000s weren't good for film.
No. Jamie Lee Curtis is in this one, and she got paid a ton of money, but she's like, okay, you can have me. I'm going to do it. This is the follow-up to H2O, which was actually halfway decent. But I want to die in the first scene.
Oh, they kill her in the beginning.
They kill her off right in the very beginning, despite the fact that she is the lead picture on all of the posters and such. In fact, on the poster we see on the screen there is just a shot of her from H2O that's not even from the movie.
Keith, that's the bait and switch like you hated about House of Dragon. That a lot of people didn't agree with you on that.
Yeah, well, people rarely do. So the concept of this is a haunted house. Like, can we get kids to be in the haunted house, like a reality TV thing? And they set up all basically webcams through the house. So half of this movie we see through terrible early 2000s webcam. So we can't even freaking see most of this movie. The characters are so stupid. The writing is so bad. As you can see there, the mask, atrocious. Like, that's even worse than it has been previously. The only thing that's fun about this movie is the finale, when Busta Rhymes essentially crucifies Michael Myers on electrical cables and fire.
Okay.
And this movie's almost unwatchable. It is there is some fun in the silliness of it, and of course our friend from Battlestar there, like that's cool. But it is like the prototypical bad, low budget, early 2000s horror film. And yeah, ooh, this one was bad.
10 kills only, so we didn't even get a lot of kills.
Nothing about this movie is good. I was so excited for it after H2O. Like I didn't see it in the theaters, but I like went and rented it, got the VHS as quickly as I could. Whew. All right, Mike, it is now time to discuss the finale of the Halloween series. So they say. Now, I don't buy it for a second.
Well,
it continues to be profitable
of this trilogy.
Of this trilogy.
And Jamie Lee Curtis has been she's gone on a goodbye, farewell tour. So it seems like she's done.
She also did that for H2O.
Yeah, okay.
20 years before.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think you should know by now, this is spoiler territory.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah.
Huge spoiler warnings. We are now going to review and discuss Halloween Ends. So if you have not seen it, go watch it, then come back.
I don't have a kill count on this, but it doesn't really matter because we'd have to separate who's doing the killing. Let me briefly give you my thoughts, and then I'll let you kind of go at it as the resident in-house expert.
Okay, we should point out that this movie is currently in theaters. You can get it on Paramount Plus. This is directed by David Gordon Green, who wrote on and directed the previous two movies, both of which I liked. So this is the end of that trilogy. So Mike, take it away.
Well, for me, Keith, it feels COVID messed up a lot of stuff, right? It feels like the trilogy was really kind of zoning in on one period of time. I feel like there was a version of this movie that would have continued the story closer to the previous four. We have a time jump right at the start of this. Well, actually, let me go to a different place. Before the time jump, we have we know that it's going to be a ballsy movie, right? Because within the first 3 minutes of this film, we kill a kid. We kill a kid horrifically.
Yeah, we sure do.
And so my wife and I were like, "No, okay, I'm in."
We're killing a kid.
And that is the theme of this film, for better or for worse. Huge swings, right? We've been exploring the idea of evil and how it can invade a town, and in how it can influence a town, and that seems to be picked up here as we see how the parallels to. Tell me this character's name. I've forgotten the babysitter.
It is Corey. He played by Rohan Campbell.
Yes, excellent performance, I think.
Yeah,
and we follow him, and I think they're setting up. He's going to be stigmatized like Laurie was, like Michael was, all this kind of thing, and so big swings. And then we jump forward 4 years, and I think that Laurie is I think it's cool. I think the way they reframe where Laurie is a different look, especially seeing the journey from where we saw her first in this trilogy, where she's kind of
right. Well, so she's a happier. I've just decided not to let this ruin my life, and I'm going to be like a happy pumpkin pie cooking kind of lady.
Now, I'm a little disappointed at this point because I really wanted to see her. I really believed we would see her in the direct aftermath of her daughter being murdered and see her vengeance. Because the way they sold this movie is it's the final showdown. It's there on the poster. Here's the final showdown of Laurie and Michael. And so is it going to happen? When's it going to happen? I thought it was going to be the whole movie.
Is she going to have agency in it?
Yeah.
Or is it just going to sort of happen?
So instead, what it feels like to me a little bit is that like 4 different people wrote 4 movies, submitted them, and none of them really included Michael Myers much. And then at some point they were like, "No, we need Michael Myers. We've sold it on that." And then they sort of like cobbled them all together, because that's the biggest issue I have with this movie is it feels completely disjointed. Where they go initially is they follow this Corey character and they have him being sort of bullied and tortured, and his past he can't escape his past, this traumatic past, and so you're waiting for him to snap, maybe. It seems like they're leading to that. But then instead, he sort of falls over a bridge, and then he like meets Michael Myers in the sewers, a la Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and then he like choke possesses him. And I think, oh, this is kind of interesting. Michael Myers is possessing him, and he's going to now do his bidding. But then they don't really see that through so much. They kind of have them sort of buddy team up like a buddy cop film where they're going to like do tag team murders. And then in the most bizarre thing, the granddaughter, I think one of two things is going to happen. They set her up to kind of fall in love with the Corey character, which is interesting because Laurie introduces them, and because Laurie believes in redemption, but then all of a sudden, for no reason, in my opinion, they have the granddaughter. Allison, is it? The granddaughter?
I think so.
Yeah. They have Allison sort of just like, oh, I'm in love with him, and so now let's burn it all down. There's that weird beat switch that makes no sense to me, where he's sort of becoming a little possessed, and then he says something, and she's like, let's burn it all down. And then I'm like, okay, I guess we're going to do Natural Born Killers, where they both just are murdering everybody?
Or at least paying off the Bonnie and Clyde costumes.
Something, but then that doesn't really happen. She just like rides on a motorcycle with a bunch, and then eventually when she finds out he murdered a bunch of people, she's like, oh, but this is after she tells Laurie. My point is that it doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't make a lot of sense what's happening. And then at least you think, okay, well, he's the new Michael Myers. Is he going to kill Michael? What's going to happen? They just abandon the Corey thing altogether to have the last, not even third, the last like eighth of the
10
movie.
minutes. It's literally the last 10 minutes.
Just have Michael and Laurie kind of like stab each other a little bit, and then they I'll let you tell them how they finish Michael off, and we get a final point. They deke out and they fake Laurie's death, and then they kill Michael, and that's the end of the trilogy. It didn't make any sense to me, Keith. It didn't make any sense to me.
I have so many thoughts. I have so many thoughts.
Like listen, nobody since, what was it, Halloween 3? We're going to do a non-Michael. It's not Michael. We're passing the torch, which clearly divisive, but I was here for it. I was like, and the guy, the Ronan character, the actor is the great performance.
Yes.
And it's justified, and everything they've built about a town infecting evil onto, or in being insidious, tracks. That storyline could have worked. Would have been divisive, but heck, they're taking but then they kind of quit on it. And I hated everything they did with the granddaughter. Those are my thoughts. And the ending, hey, you know what? At least they give you a period at the end of the sentence.
Did you not hear the list of the ways they killed off Michael Myers in every single movie?
Yeah, but they never meat grindered him. Come on. They slit his wrists, Keith, and then they meat grindered him, and they prayed him through the town.
They decapitated him in H2O.
Yeah, well.
We saw his head.
Listen, meat grinder feels final to
There's
me.
always a way to get out of it.
You can be deep meat grindered.
100% there's a way to get out of it.
I mean, is that a satisfying death for Michael Myers? I don't know. I liked it better when he was possessed as the kid. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
It didn't pay off the trilogy. That's what the problem was. Now, that all said, here are my pros. I thought it was a satisfying, agency-filled performance for Laurie. And it was a send-off. I felt like in some way, it gave Jamie Lee Curtis different stuff to play as the character. And I loved the deke-out faux suicide scene, except it was completely ruined and spoiled in every trailer. That wasn't the way. Like, you see right. the frame after the fake suicide, so you know you're not fooled. It had a lot of ideas. It had too many ideas, and none of them are coherent or conducive to a satisfying film, in my opinion.
Yeah. I've been thinking about
fun.
this.
None of the kills were fun.
No.
There weren't enough of them. Michael barely did, and the one he did, it was like a tag team. And then the Corey character brought him like some like murder fuel in the sewer. That made no sense when he kills. None of it made any kind of sense.
Yeah, yeah. I've been trying to figure out how to talk about this for a couple of days as I've been thinking about it. But I think one of the things you said right away is, I think, really what it feels like to me. And I know that it's not this, because they've been planning this and working on this. But this reads like a spec script horror movie that had no ties to Michael Myers whatsoever. And the producers were like, "Oh, you know what? Let's adapt that into a Michael Myers movie. That'd be so good." And so they just tagged him in peripherally around the edges. And there's a couple of reasons for feeling this way. Like, one, Michael Myers is barely in this movie. Flat out, he is barely in this movie. Two, every single character that we meet is behaving like a completely different character. Now, I get from a storytelling point, Laurie's like, I'm not going to let this define me. I'm going to find a way to make this positive. I'm going to change how. I actually kind of liked that, right? That made sense to me. But she wasn't behaving like any of the Lauries we've ever seen, right? The daughter, I get, like, we're doing an exploration of trauma.
Granddaughter.
Right? And the granddaughter. And we're looking at ways in which trauma has affected each of these characters, how it has affected the community, right? And how it has changed and adapted. So I get what they're trying to do. Every one of these characters is behaving differently because of the trauma that they experienced. But the granddaughter is not a likable person in this movie. She has none of her decisions make any sense. If you're going to tell a story about her being self-destructive now, like, okay, sure, I get that. But it didn't have any logic even with that. The main character of this movie is none of the people we've met. It's not Michael Myers. It's not Laurie Strode. It's not the granddaughter. It's Corey.
Mm-hmm.
It's Rowan Campbell.
And what are we supposed to feel about him? We see the mom of the kid he accidentally killed be like evil. We see the dad have this bizarre scene where he's like, I feel bad. I know that it was an accident, but then I saw him recently and he looks possessed. It's like they figure out that he's possessed by Michael Myers. It doesn't make any sense.
I didn't take that he's possessed at all. I think that
they just became buddies. They like tagged. They were like a WWE tag team.
The question is, with that character, he obviously ends up as a psychopath, right?
Yeah, sure.
As a full-on psychopath, and so and I understand get the move. Okay, so we're exploring, right? Did the tragedy of killing the kid turn him into a psychopath? Or was he one all along and that sort of unlocked that tendency within him? Okay, sure. That's interesting. But it's not about Michael Myers. It's not about Laurie Strode. It's not about this movie at all. It's a separate movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of a retelling of Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer, who is very intentionally designed to look like Michael Rooker in that movie. And I actually had to stop before the last 15 minutes and then finish it the next morning. And at the 15 minutes before the end of the movie, I was convinced that Michael Myers was dead, that there was no Michael Myers at all, and he was hallucinating him. And that the final reveal, we were going to discover the decomposed body of Michael Myers in the sewers, and that he found the mask. And like, so what? And so you're right. So it's a movie about this guy,
mm-hmm.
and it looks like they're going to set him up to be the new Michael Myers, right? Then Michael Myers, the next generation, he's going to pass the torch or whatever. And like, I get it. Michael Myers now like 70 something, but like, that's not this character. I don't get what they're trying to do. Right? Nobody in this movie is likable. I know you said that you felt like Laurie had agency in this. I don't think she has any at all. She's just sitting there baking pies and then just waits, as opposed to going out and trying to rescue her granddaughter or going out to try to kill Michael Myers or set up a trap. All the agency that she had in the first movie, she just sort of stood there and waited for him to show up. She didn't do anything.
That's fair. This
entire movie.
Well, I guess that just
she went grocery shopping.
It seemed less egregious than the agency they removed from the granddaughter, because they make her make stupid decisions, which doesn't seem like her bag. And then
she's not just like boy crazy.
And then here's my biggest. In fact, ride around the block with me on this one, Keith. I think one of the best analogies for this movie is is symbolism it didn't know it was setting up. So they hit you hard over the head in the first 20 minutes of the movie with images of the radio station. And you see and you hear the DJ and like this morning show kind of like DJ voice about, and he's all about Michael Myers coming back and all this stuff. They just hit you over the head with it. So you know that there's coming to a showdown. The radio station has something to do with it.
It's got to pay off somehow, right? But it doesn't.
It doesn't. And in fact, all that really happens is they kill the DJ at some point, and she puts together that, oh, it must have been Corey who killed the DJ, so maybe I guess Laurie was right. He is a mass murderer, and I should go back home. And so,
but does she? She still love. I didn't
well,
get
this
her
is what I'm getting.
putting that
this
together.
Is what I'm getting. They really hit you. They think there's all this symbolism, or so you're waiting for it, but nothing pays off.
They didn't pay off anything,
yeah.
Including the trilogy, including all the things that they set up. What they did here, they made a bunch of references to superior work, right? Like they're constant references to this. You know, the weird incestuous mother, that's a Carrie reference. The stairs the kid falls down, that's a reference to The Omen. The sewers there that they're going in, it's referencing It. The sort of malignancy of the town is sort of similar to how Derry works in It, right? But like none of it's all referencing, you know, and of course the Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, big reference there. The radio station, right? I think it's a reference to Texas Chainsaw 2, which has a big scene that takes place in a radio station, but there's no meaning to it beyond, oh, yeah. It's sort of similar to Texas Chainsaw. But why? What does it mean? What's the payoff? Like, I thought, and again, and I think they set it on fire. So they had that huge radio tower. Mm-hmm. We keep seeing it. I'm like, oh, okay. Final scene, Laurie and Michael on the top of the tower battling 100%. To the death. Fuck yeah. Sign me up for that. Do we get that? Nope. Did we get a great battle between the two of them? Nope. Did we learn anything? Nope. Are we even sure that fucking Michael Myers was even in the movie? Only sort of. I certainly wasn't until the last 10 minutes. This movie just... And it was...
Well, and the worst of it is that... So, because this trilogy has been really moving towards that, we're trying to tell it's a fable, basically. It's a fable wrapped in a tale where it's about Michael Myers, but it's more about this exploration of trauma and evil, right?
Right.
But it doesn't pay any of that off. And so because it didn't pay on any of it off, we go back to what I like about these movies. Was it at least fun? No. And I'll tell you why. And I'll tell you why it wasn't fun. A, you know, it asked a bunch of questions. It didn't have they asked a whole bunch of questions, didn't have any answers to it. Oh, right. Mm-hmm. And I think the other thing that was really missing from this, from the fun angle, the whole point of fucking Halloween is Michael Myers killing people. Yeah, we don't get any.
He's not even in the movie. No, he's barely in the movie.
The best kill is the kid falling off the stairs. That's the best kill.
And not related to anybody we've ever seen before.
And the big killing of Michael Myers, whether you like it or don't like it, the slitting of the wrists and the meat grinder. The biggest problem with those is the CG is terrible. The CG it just looks digital, and then you see his arm waving. That looks digital. They're not even good organic practical kills, which is what I enjoy. So we're not getting any of the things I want.
Yeah, and the other thing that is missing from the first two movies in this series, which I really loved because it was true of the first movie, is true of the second movie, were the funniness, the side characters. They were. You know, it wasn't like we're playing comedy, but these are interesting, fun, colorful side characters, and people are having fun. People are playing interesting. Everything was dour, and miserable. Nothing was funny. Nothing was fun. I didn't like anybody in this movie. I wasn't rooting for anybody in this movie, and it just didn't pay off anything that you'd set up so well. You saw my rankings. I loved the first two movies in this. I was so excited to see this pay off, right? And the final battle, and I was like, look, all you have to do is like end on the tower or have this big final battle in a field or something where there's agency and not just sort of happenstance. And you you have Laurie Strode here. This is your last chance conceptually with Laurie Strode, and she's peripheral. She's peripheral to the movie. You're two here. Look at that poster. Both of those characters peripheral.
Well, I think that I mentioned this up top. I do think that the marketing for the film belies some of the better ideas of the movie. They couldn't really see the Corey angle through. I thought that was an interesting idea, handing off the torch, how the town and Michael Myers and his legacy created this new Michael Myers. Cool idea. Even the natural born killer's idea, although I don't ever think it would really work that way. Their shared trauma wasn't really that shared. But okay, whatever. It could have been cool, but they were unable to see those things through because the marketing of the film, what we were all promised, belies any of those ideas. We have to get to that final showdown, which then allows no endings to the other one. In fact, Corey's ending is really what a horrible
waste
death.
of time.
Yeah,
what a waste of time. But and I almost feel like, and I have literally nothing to base this on. So like this isn't like I'm just wild speculation. It's almost like their plan was to spin Corey off as the new Michael Myers. They showed the rough cut to Blumhouse, and they're like, "Fuck no! You need to go back and rewrite the last 10." Because it felt like the last 10 minutes of the movie were like, "Oh crap! Oh wait, make it about Michael, make it about Michael," because they're not going to let us do this. So we have an unsatisfying end for Corey, and then we just have like, the battle between the two of them. If that were the prelude to the final battle, right? If three-quarters of the way through the movie they have this battle in the house, in the kitchen, and then we move to the finale on the tower, right? Okay, you got me. I don't care as much about the rest of it because I've got that final battle.
Or how about this, Keith? If we're taking big swings, how about Laurie doesn't know it's Corey. They don't all figure it out so quick. And like you said, 2/3 through, at the end of Act 2, we have the big showdown with Laurie and Michael. And she kills Michael. Oh, it's all is well, all is good. But no, Act 3, there's the new Michael. And now he's the one stalking killing, and we have to figure that out. That's a nice twist.
Sure.
The big, like I'm just saying something. The funny thing to me is, the biggest turnaround for me is, what I hated about the second one was the ending. I hated that the teaser tag where they kill the daughter and it's like, oh, shock thing at the end of the film. Here, I was waiting for it. I was like, well, that's not the end. ...
Right.
What's the big pop? What's the thing? And then it's like, roll credits. And I was like, I even watched through all of the credits to see
me too.
if there was a stinger. Nothing. That's it.
Nothing. No, I feel for the writers and directors on this, and because. And I was saying this to Jillian. I understand. I'm a writer too, right? I'm not successful. I'm a very hardworking, unsuccessful writer. However, I've written in genre before, right? I wrote, I was planning a novel trilogy. It's sort of like a zombie apocalypse sort of a deal. It's called The Dead Circle, and its sequel, Beneath the Snow. You can buy it right below. However, and I'm just going to be straight with everybody here, I got about halfway through the third book, and I kind of lost steam because I really liked the sort of horror and the zombie and the survival aspect of it. But then, it got a little boring for me, right? It's like, oh, I've sort of done that. I was really excited the first time to do it. The second book, I changed the monster, and so that was really fun, but it was still basically the same premise. How do I survive and escape an inexhaustible monster, right? But I got a little bored, right? And I needed to move on to a different genre thing. And the thing, it's like, the one meal you really love, you're really excited to eat it, but you don't want to have it every night for 3 years. And I feel like what happened here is David Gordon Green and the team have always wanted to do a Halloween movie, have always wanted to do it and do it great, and they have all these great ideas. And they did the first two, and they were great. And then they're like, oh, well, we have to do a third one. I'm so bored of the Michael Myers thing. I have to do something else, which is why this feels like a different movie. It feels like, I want to do, all right, Michael Myers, whatever, but I want to do something else and sort of put Michael Myers around it. And which is why I think for a simplistic genre piece, right? Halloween is so simple, right? It's just man in mask stabs people, right? And a smart, interesting, creative writer can definitely come up with an amazing movie. I would love to do a Halloween movie. I'd have all great ideas for the great kills and the situation, the setup, and this blah 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 blah. But I think I'd get bored after the first two movies too. I don't think people who love this but are like smart people who want to make real movies should do more than one or two. I think you have to pass the ball because you're gonna if you're and I think David Gordon is a smart, talented director and writer. I think he just got bored and didn't want to make another Halloween movie, and he didn't.
Keith, this is why I just like the Final Destination films, because that premise is simple. It's just crazy kills. That's it. Nothing deeper. Just give me crazy inventive kills. That's what I want from a Halloween
you don't
movie.
want one like artist to make all 7 of them.
Right.
Just like bring in new people, smart, good writers who just like, look, I got these 10 kills. I'm so excited.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then just move forward. And I just think that this would have been way better had they handed this third movie off to somebody else, or just make it 2 movies in this world. This was utterly unnecessary.
All right, so it's clear. Let's not belabor let's not meat grinder it.
All we've done is meat grinder.
I know. Where does it now rank in your films, Keith?
Boy, I'm looking at it. Okay, I'm going to start from the bottom and pick movies that it's better than. Right? And it's tough because I'm grading it on a different scale. Because this is a real movie, right? It's not some schlocky piece of nonsense with terrible acting and writing and everything. It's a real movie, but I have to sort of judge it based on what it's attempted to be. So, is it better than Halloween Resurrection? Yeah, of course it is. Is it better than Curse of Michael Myers? Yeah, definitely. Is it better than Rob Zombie's Halloween 2? Kind of similar in tones. Like, we lost all the fun, we lost all the color. It just became sort of bleak and out of it. So, but I think it is better than Halloween 2. I think for me, it lives somewhere in the Halloween 4, Halloween 5, the Danielle Harris, which are this is a better film than either of those. But it's just not a Halloween film. So I think objectively, I'm gonna like get over my disappointment of not having much of Michael Myers and it not paying off that well. So I think once I do that, once I've taken a shower and I've had lunch, for me, I think it goes into the new 7th place between Rob Zombie's first Halloween film and Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers. That's where it is for me.
All right, folks. Well, that was a deep dive. We promised you a deep dive. You got a deep dive. Now, my next promise that I'm sure to keep is next week, we are going to talk about things exclusively that we like. All right? We're going to get to the retro segment. We've been teasing for about 3 weeks now. First 2 episodes. That's fine. We're trying to keep it relatively concise. We didn't hit the mark today.
Hard fail.
But that's okay. Halloween. That's what it's the season we're in. We're talking about it next week. I want to talk a little bit more video games, Keith, if that's all right with you. And we'll find out what stuff you've been watching, listening to, consuming that you've been digging. I want to know. We're going to do quick hits. We'll do a time limit. All right. 1 minute. We'll get 5 each.
Okay.
1 minute each. Just stuff we're really digging. And we'll hit that retro segment. And that's what we'll do next week on K&M Geekly. Until then, you can check out our social medias here. Let me ask you, if you are interested in helping us continue this show and our 2 other shows, you can give us a like, you can give us a subscribe, you can hit the bell notification, you can tell a friend. Those are all free ways to keep the show free. Or you could join the illustrious patrons who are giving their hard-earned dollars to keep the show going. And they get some fun bonus stuff, like episodes of me watching Deep Space Nine, episodes of Keith and I watching The Next Generation, the animated series, AMAs, lots of more goodies to come. They are Brian Kaufman, Casey Clark, Cloudlover69, Jason Moe, Jorge Navoa, and the mysterious Worf's Boot Shivs, Charles Nivens, Alan Zimmerman, CRM Productions, Charles Babbage, at Grim_Toys. We thank you. We love you. We will not put you in the meat grinder.
We will not. But if you would like to put your eyes and ears in the meat grinder with more of this, you can check out Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine, a deep dive into every episode of Deep Space Nine. You can check out our look at my Star Trek toys, where we go back and look at Playmate's original 1990s Star Trek action figures, as well as detailed reviews of the 2022 new line of action figures. So you can check out all of that and check out the archive. I know some of the people have been asking about, can you review this toy? There's about 100 episodes. Go back in the archive. Chances are, if you've thought of it, we have reviewed it.
All right, folks, that'll do it for us here at K&M Geekly. We'll see you next week. Until then, keep it geekly. Oh, I gave it a shot.
But that's the tag?
I still haven't come up with a tag.
Keep it geekly?
No, that's terrible. Hey, you have any ideas for a tag? Throw it in the comments below, because I'm 0 for 2.
Do you have any toe curling ideas for a tag?
We'll see you next week.